I'm basically anybody going generally the right direction, I try to encourage. I don't want to be sitting here in California telling people in New York what they're doing wrong in general. Having said that, there are a couple things I do want to mention, which is that I think that Occupy was a really poor choice of words, because this country has been occupied by white people and the land stolen from Indians. And occupation is generally not a good thing. Think of the occupation of Palestine. You know, think of occupied nations in World War II. That, and this is not just a sort of superficial comment. One of the things I said in my talk to the people at the in DC was that I think that asking for a bigger piece of the pie on a planet being murdered is a wee bit insufficient. So one concern I have is I think we always need to recognize at all moments that we're living on stolen land, and we need to be working to, and the land is stolen not only from the indigenous humans, but from the non-humans. And one of the things I said when I did the talk in DC was, you know, where you're standing right here should be a wetlands. And where are the inhabitants? Where are the human inhabitants? Where are the wood bison? Where are the passenger pigeons? And so I think that we need to keep that in mind at every moment. And another thing that I do have to say about the Occupy movement that I have found appalling is the sheer is the misogyny, in that I have heard so many accounts of women being raped at these Occupy movements, and the perpetrators either being protected or not being punished in any way. And there was a statement put out at, I believe, Occupy Baltimore that was effectively discouraging women from reporting rapes to the police. And even when they talked about rape, they said they refused to use gender specificity in terms of rape victims. And in fact, when they said he, she, etc., he was the first gender that they put. It's really appalling. And there's been problems. Even when I talked at the Occupy DC, one of the things I said was, actually I didn't do Occupy DC, I did Stop the Machine, which is another one that's there. And one of the things I said is I had talked to several, I'd gotten several reports from women that they were afraid to use the porta toilets because nobody was providing protection at night. And they would have to, there were all these strange men hanging around the porta toilets. And they hadn't even done that fundamental level of protection. And so when I talk at Occupy Oakland, that's one of the things I'm going to talk about, is the importance of having a zero tolerance policy for abuse of women, a zero tolerance policy for misogyny, a zero tolerance policy for racism within these movements. And so that's something else that I've found so far pretty appalling. You know, like the cops in New York were allegedly delivering like drug addicts into the Zuccotti Park in an attempt to just disrupt everything. And if they actually had some sort of system in place, they could have simply said, we're not allowing these people into the community. And that needs to happen. Having said that, once again, I think that it's great that they're doing something against corporate power. And what I would love to see is, as we were talking about earlier, a movement at some point from symbolic occupations to real occupations, as they were doing in Oakland, where they shut down the port for a day. Those in power are only going to understand. I mean, they only understand some sort of force, whether it's economic force or the force of millions of people blockading. It's like the bus boycotts. The bus boycotts work not because those in power suddenly realized that they were racist. Instead, they worked because they economically brought them to their knees. That the dominant culture is torturing and murdering the planet, and it is irredeemable, and it needs to be stopped. And if you are a member of an oppressor class, it is not the responsibility of members of the oppressed class to differentiate you from others of the oppressors. It is up to you to differentiate yourself. By which I mean that as a male, it is not up to females to differentiate me from other males in this patriarchy. It's up to me to differentiate myself. And as a white person, it's not up to people of color to differentiate me from other white people. It's up to me to differentiate myself. To differentiate ourselves from other people and to actually do things that are best for the land. That almost never enters into our understanding. What is actually best for the land? Where does that enter into any of those bright green lies that we were talking about before? How do they actually help the real physical world? The most important question that you can ask, the most moral question you can ask, is the world a better place because you were born? Is the world a better place because of your actions? How do you actually make the world? And I'm not talking, when I say the world, I'm not talking about this culture. Most people, a lot of people confuse this culture and the planet. They say, it's like college students, what are you going to do when you get out in the real world? What they mean is, what are you going to do when you get out and have to get a job? But the real world is the real physical world. The real world are the, well, we'll see if this will do it. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, if this will work with the light. Can you see the trees?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the real physical world. And, are your actions better for the physical world? Is the physical world glad that you're alive? I mean, the reason the world became such a wonderful, beautiful place in the first place is because of salmon living and dying. What you need to do is to live in such a way that you make the world actually glad that you were born. I guess that's the strongest message.